Now, Nigeria plans to overhaul its tax system to shift more of the burden of taxation to wealthier citizens while cutting corporate taxes at the same time. Now, the move is part of President Bola Tinubu's set of reforms to overhaul the beleaguered oil and gas economy, and it aims to lift the country's tax stake to 18% of gross domestic product within 3 years from current levels of 11%. Now, tax amnesty to encourage compliance is also under consideration. The plan is to make the rich pay what is fair, really, and for those who are too poor to actually chip in to be protected. The campaign will also effect a reduction in the corporate income tax rate to below the current effective rate of more than 40%, with the view to helping businesses thrive. Now, in Nigeria, a tiny minority of the population enjoys enormous amounts of wealth, while 2/3 of its 200 million people live in extreme poverty, and the numbers suggest that tax evasion is fairly widespread. All right, then let's dig into the details of the story. Idris Shuiab is a Nigerian economist and the CEO of Timeline Consult. Is joining us from Lagos tonight. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Idris. Let's start with a broad picture here. Is that goal of raising the country's tax to GDP ratio from 11% to 18% in just 3 years, from where you sit, is that feasible?
Good evening, and thank you very much for having me. I think it is always good for government and indeed any organization to have what we call a big, audacious and hefty goal. I look at tax to GDP ratio for Nigeria, raising it from somewhat a single digit to 18%, a bit of an uphill tax, but impossible is nothing, like Chelsea fans will say. I believe it's something that can be done if we are able to put all hands on deck. In the introductory part of the conversation, you did allude to the fact that there is enormous amount of tax evasion and tax avoidance in Nigeria without necessarily having to increase the rate of taxation, whether value-added tax, company income tax, petroleum profit tax, withholding tax, and other taxes, just by improving, the tax collection process using technology. I believe enormous amount of progress can be made. Much more than that, the number of people in the tax bracket, when I say persons, I mean both natural and artificial persons, that is companies that are under the tax bracket. If we are able to broaden and widen, the tax net, we will be able to achieve significantly an improvement in the tax to GDP ratio.
So essentially, the approach here would be what? To lower the taxes and essentially to ease people into compliance, because it's one thing to say you have to pay a corporate income tax rate or personal income tax rate of 30, 35, 40% rather than 20% and paid off in one go. If it's much smaller and easy to comply, the argument here is that we'll have higher collections, correct?
I tend to fundamentally disagree with the government thinking in that light. Lowering the tax rate may not necessarily be the best thing to do. If any, those of us in the business environment, those of us that are professionals, I'm a chartered accountant and I have been a tax practitioner myself, I can say that with all sense of modesty, the challenge by businessmen and women in Nigeria is multiplicity of taxation. If we could streamline the taxes to be collected, if we could reduce the number of taxes being levied by various government agencies, we will have an enhanced compliance rather than a reduction in the tax rate. For the last time I checked, the personal income tax is a graduated scale. So for those who are low income earners, they don't pay as much taxes as those who pay, who earn a bit higher, income bracket. The last administration, that is the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, had a review of taxation policy wherein they approved that certain businesses, what we call micro, small, and medium scale enterprises, those whose turnover is less than 25 million naira. 25 million naira today is somewhere around 25 or $30,000. They are not supposed to pay any taxation. So you could see that, yes, at one stage, there are encouragement for people to fall into the tax bracket, but in other states, yes, okay, for example, company income tax is waived for micro, small, and medium scale enterprises, but other taxations are still there.
Right.
My small business in Lagos, as recent as 45, 60 days ago, I got a tax bill from a local government. I mean, I pay tax to the federal government. Individually, I pay my tax to the Lagos state government, and again, the company gets a tax bill from a local government. I mean, as a company limited by guarantee, why should anyone, not even state government, but local government, to be sending a tax note to me? But for fear of
apologies for interrupting you, because we are running a bit short on time here. But strictly speaking, from your perspective then, your argument is that we have too many overlapping taxes. What's the low-hanging fruit here? If you're essentially advising this tax reform committee that Taiwo Oyedele is running at the moment, what are the first three things you tell him, look, these taxes just have to go?
Fundamentally, two, three things quickly. Number one, to leverage on technology so that we can get as many companies as possible. Today, we have close to about 25, 30 million companies that are registered in Nigeria or thereabout. The number of companies, as the last time I checked with the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the number of companies that are subjected to taxation are less than 1 million. This is an anomaly. Taiwo's committee needs to quickly broaden that tax bracket. Number two, also a very low-hanging fruit is the fact that there have been several tax waivers that have been approved by successive administration, from President Obasanjo's time down to Goodluck Jonathan's time and Muhammadu Buhari's time. These tax waivers need to quickly as quick as yesterday to be reviewed, so that these companies must be made to pay the taxes as and when due. It may not be easy and it may not be feasible legally to rewrite history, but I wish it is, so that these companies should be made to pay the taxes that have somewhat been evaded. And last but not the least, like I did say, the multiplicity of taxations needs to be reviewed quickly, and the National Assembly needs to pass a rule such that local government, state government should know the limit of the authority of taxation they need to collect, so that companies can be facing just one tax authority, which is the Federal Inland Revenue at the national government. But the subnational needs not to bother legal entities that are registered as limited liability companies.